Stella, I just want to get your reaction to today's decision.
Well, I find the decision bizarre. The courts have identified three major obstacles to Julian's extradition, but they've asked for a political intervention from the US government in order to address these issues.
And they expect it sort of by mid-May. Do you guys think that that's going to happen?
Well, the US is given until the 16th of April to issue so-called diplomatic assurances. And then if they do so, then there will be a hearing on the 20th of May. That's the provisional timetable.
Is there a feeling that they can give those assurances in this space of time that they have?
There is no assurance that the US can give that will keep Julian safe from what he is exposed to. The US government has said under oath that it intends to discriminate against him on the basis of his nationality, that he is not entitled to constitutional protections under the First Amendment. And the UK courts have asked the US government to contradict these submissions by US prosecutors. The UK courts have also identified the death penalty as a real possibility.
And that is obviously your greatest fear and that of Julian's.
Julian risks losing his life either to the death penalty or to being assassinated, because we know that the US administration, under the Trump administration previously, had already plotted to assassinate him. And also, if he is taken to the United States, he will be placed under conditions of extreme isolation, which could and will drive him to commit suicide. So it's just not safe to send him to the United States, and that is the conclusion that the UK courts should have reached by now. But unfortunately, we're still in this position of the UK courts now essentially putting the ball into the US side to maybe be able to blame the US if something goes wrong.
Has Julian reacted to this at all? Have you spoken to him?
I spoke to him very briefly. Our conversations are only 10 minutes at a time. After 10 minutes, it just cuts off. So I haven't been able to speak to him at length. We only just learned of the decision, just like everyone else, except Julian has to be read the decision because he doesn't have any access to the internet. So Julian is highly isolated and removed from the world because he is in a cell where he's been for almost 5 years.
And how is he doing? I know you've spoken in the past about his state of mind, but how is he doing right now, given there are all these things happening sort of at the moment?
Well, every day is a struggle. He has been in this indefinite imprisonment for, it will be 5 years on the 11th of April. He's not convicted of any crime. He's basically being kept in a legal limbo. And this is indefinite detention. It is tantamount to torture. We know that the international experts say that indefinite detention is psychological torture, and certainly after several years of being in this situation, treated as another prisoner, except he's not serving a sentence or convicted of any crime. He should just be released. This case should never have been brought.
Does he have regrets about any of this?
Julian did nothing wrong. The United States has taken an unprecedented case against the publisher for publishing the truth. Julian was not the source of these documents. He owed no duty to the US government. In fact, he's not even a US citizen. He wasn't in the United States. The case that the US has taken against Julian is unprecedented and extreme. It basically says that anyone who anywhere in the world can be put in prison if they publish true information that embarrasses certain sections of the US government. It's always been seen as a very controversial case in the United States. Certainly all the press freedom groups say it is an attack on press freedom and puts journalists everywhere at risk. So I think it is the US government that needs to revisit this case and really drop the case against him, because all he did was publish the truth.
And it's the US government that says, as a result of publishing these documents, lives were put at risk. And that is one of the reasons that they're saying that they needed to take action.
Actually, under oath, the United States says that they have found no case of anyone being harmed as a result of these publications. They have this talking point, but then when it comes to demonstrating it in court, they say they have no evidence of it. It is something that they have basically been pushing for 13 years in order to draw attention away from the harm that was caused and evidenced in these documents, i.e. war crimes, torture, assassination squads, and violations of the highest order against international law committed by the country that's trying to extradite him. It's a way of displacing attention away from actual crimes committed by the US and trying to silence the publisher who put that evidence into the public domain.
Given everything that Julian has gone through, do you think he would do it again if he had to?
Well, the US is essentially criminalizing public interest journalism. And with this case, it is saying that if you publish the truth about crimes committed in times of war, crimes committed against innocent people, innocent victims, then you will be put in prison, and that precedent cannot stand. And we have to push for the case to be dropped, because if it is allowed to stand, then journalism is basically a crime. Exposing the killing of innocent people can never be considered a crime in a democratic and open society. So it is, everything turns on this case being dropped.
So he would do it again?
Well, Julian is the most principled man I know, and he also feels that he has a duty to the public. If there is information in his possession, for example, of war crimes, which this material evidenced, then that information should be published. And we rely on journalists being protected in order to publish material, whether or not it is labeled secret, because often states label the things they want to cover up secret. It's a cover-up. So journalists have to have the ability to publish that information regardless. Their duty is to the public. The source, sometimes insiders, sometimes they might be violating their contract or their official duty or whatever. That's a separate case. They should be protected, but it's a separate case. Julian is being prosecuted for publishing, for doing the work that journalists do. And that is what's at stake, the ability of publishers to publish the truth and keep the public informed.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Americans might offer some kind of plea bargain. Is that something that you guys are aware of or is being discussed?
Well, I'd refer you to Julian's U.S. Defense Counsel's statement. There is no indication that the U.S. Is seeking to do anything other than to put Julian in prison for 175 years and to convict him for publishing evidence of war crimes. So the U.S. should use the UK decision today to reconsider its position and drop this case, which is a case that was brought by the Trump administration and is the most dangerous and lasting legacy of the U.S. of the Trump administration.
This, no doubt, this whole situation has had a huge toll on you, your family, your children, and Julian. What would you now like to see? Obviously, you'd like to see this case dropped and for Julian to be free. What are your hopes for the future going forward?
Well, we have two little boys. They're 5 and 6 years old, and they need their father. Every day that Julian is in prison is a day that they're deprived of their father, and their father's love and affection and guidance. We're able to see Julian once or twice a week, but that's obviously nothing at all. And Julian should not have spent a single day in prison. He's a political prisoner, and I want our children to grow up knowing that the British system put a stop to this, put a stop to the persecution of a publisher. And unfortunately, so far, that is not the story I'm able to tell our children.
Stella, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.